Hey everyone, I'm going to go over how to build your very own Golden Gate Bridge model. First, you're going to start with the tower piece on the left and the road with indentations for the tower, and you're going to slide it in diagonally and then push it in and press firmly to make sure it's attached. Then you're going to grab a cable and truss and a connector 1, and you're going to insert the truss under the road, making sure it goes into the slots for it. You're going to grab the cable and make sure it is going to fit into the connector there on top. Then you're going to make sure or check which vertical cable the connector needs to go between for it to be halfway on that road. And you're going to put it in between those two cables and then put the connector into the truss and then slide it in. You want to make sure the bottom of the cable touches the tower and that the connector is about halfway into that road piece. Then you're going to connect it on top. Next, you're going to do the same thing for the other side. So you're going to grab a mirrored cable, a truss, and another connector 1. You're going to insert the truss all the way into the road, pressing firmly. And then you're going to grab the cable, again making sure it is going to fit there. And then check which vertical cables the connector goes in, which is going to be between these two. Put it in, and then put the connector into the truss. And then slide it into the road, again making sure the bottom of the cable touches the tower, and that the connector is about halfway into that road, and just connect the cable right there on top. Next, you're going to do the same thing but with a different cable. So this cable looks like a triangle, but same road or same truss, same connector piece. So you're going to grab the truss, insert it into the road all the way into the tower, and then make sure this cable is going to fit into that connector, and then check which vertical cables to put the connector number 1 into. And again, insert it into the truss and then slide the connector into the road. And you're going to want to make sure the connector is about halfway into the road and the bottom of the cable is touching the tower. Then go ahead and connect it. So you're going to want to do the same thing on the other side, and once you do that, you're going to grab these, what I call sidewalks. So in the real bridge they look like the sidewalks where people walk through, and you're going to put it into the tower and then slide it down, making sure that the cutout for the cables is on the bottom. Then you're going to want to fit the bottom of the cables into these sidewalks, into that square cutout, making sure you grab both of the cables. So see, on this one I didn't, so I gotta sort of put the cable into that cutout. And the purpose of this is so that the cables don't just dangle around and they're actually supported. Next, you're gonna grab a road piece and you're gonna insert it into this end that has the cable. So you're gonna want to make sure that the truss is going into the slots for the truss on the road. So the slots are going to be down, facing down onto the truss, and slide it in, and they should be flush with the other road, making sure everything is sturdy and pushed all the way in. Next, you're going to grab these connector number 2s, which are the ones with little notches on top, and you're going to slide them into the road and press the truss into them. So it might be a little difficult and you might hear a click. You should make sure it's all the way in, and do that for both sides. Next, you're going to grab one of these cables, these thinner ones, again making sure that the cable is going to connect on top with the cable. Then you're going to grab a truss, insert it into the connector number 2 that you just put in, making sure everything is firm and pressed together. Then you're going to grab that cable and see between which two vertical cables to put this connector number 1 onto. You're gonna put it in, then again put the connector through the truss, and much like the other one, just slide it in. You're wanting to put the connector halfway into that road. Now it's important to get this cable into the other connector, this connector right here. So you want to make sure it slides in all the way in till the bottom of the cable is touching the bottom of the other cables. Making sure everything is in, the connector's about halfway in, just go ahead and connect the cables there on top. And do that same thing for the other side. Next, you're going to do the same procedure for the other side. So you're going to put the road into these connectors. Again, you want to have the slots on the bottom so that the truss can go in. Just slide it in. Might be a little difficult, but make sure everything is aligned. And then you want those connectors to be halfway on one road and halfway on the other road. So this is. Then you're gonna get these connector number 2s with the notches on top, and then put them into these trusses, making sure you grab the cable on top. Again, it might be a little difficult, but just make sure you hear a click right there. Alright, next you're going to grab 2 of these trusses and you're going to put them into the connectors you just put on there. You're going to slide it into the road and into the connector. Again, making sure you feel a click. And they're both on there. Next you're going to grab one of these short road pieces and these connector number 3s. So these connectors don't have room for grabbing the cable, and that's because there's no cable over here. So you're gonna put it in the truss and put this one halfway into the road that's already hanging out. Do the same for the other side. And then you want to put the road piece on top of these trusses and into the connectors, so the connectors are halfway between each one. Then you're gonna grab the other 2 connector number 3s and slide them in at the ends, making sure it grabs the truss on the bottom and then the road on top, like so. Until it's flush with the ends of the road. So once you have this whole section of bridge, you're basically gonna redo all the steps I've just mentioned till you have 2 that look the same as this one. Once you have 2 of them, you're making sure everything's flush. This is a good time to make sure everything's really nice and connected. So push the trusses all the way in into the roads, and you're gonna look at the connection of the trusses right there. You want to make sure they're all the way in. So you can see there, you'll see that the last triangle seen is barely visible, and that's really important to make sure the bridge is really well aligned. And then again, check the other connection of trusses on the other side, making sure you have those last triangles barely visible. And then make sure you press everything into that tower. A good sign would be seeing that the truss and the cable there are flush with each other. That's what you want to see for both. Once you make sure everything's nice and snug, you want to get these connector number 4s, which have the cutout in the middle, and they're a little taller than the other ones. And you're going to grab a road piece, and you're going to slide this road piece into the truss and cables, again till it's flush with the other road, making sure that the trusses go into the slots for the trusses on the road. Do that for one, and then do the same thing for the other side. Usually helps to sand them up at this point. They should be pretty well balanced because they're about the same length. So again, you're going to slide this road, now that it's connected to the other section of bridge, to this one, and that connects everything together. So this next part is a little tricky. You want to make sure you get the connector number 4, and then you slide, you insert the cable into this connector, and then the other one, making sure the connector just sort of sits on these two cables. And then you want to pull the connector down till it hooks onto the truss. And once you feel the hook, you want to push it back up like that, and then pull the cables back up to make sure it snaps into position. Again, you do the same procedure with the other side, and it's really important to note and pay attention that you did hook onto both of the trusses, not just one. So again, you want to hook onto the trusses and then pull it back up. Once you do that, might be a little tricky, so you just take your time and pull it back up, and then push the cables in. It should just snap into position right there, and it should be nice and snug. So for reference, here you can see the connectors are grabbing. This one's grabbing these two, and this one's grabbing these two. Alright, that's the whole bridge. So now you can put the wall mounts onto the wall. You're gonna put it whatever height you want to, making sure you have enough clearance for the whole bridge, because it is about 6 feet long. So you want to put the first one on top and then the one on the bottom, and you want to make sure this is as parallel with the ground as possible, so the bridge doesn't look tilted in any direction. So once you do that, you want to put the thumbtack in and then fill it in with the rest of the thumbtacks. Once you have one wall mount on the wall, you want to measure the distance between one center of one tower and the center of the other tower. And then you want to make sure that the center of one wall mount is the same distance to the center of the other wall mount. To add an arch to the middle of the bridge so it doesn't look like it's sagging, I'd recommend adding these magnets. And the way you do that is you're going to grab one, put it on top there at the end of the cable, and then just let the others go towards the one on top. And that should act as a weight and pull the center up. And that's it. You have your very own Golden Gate Bridge model.